The evening shift at Mercy General Hospital was winding down as Dr. Sarah Mitchell completed her rounds in the ICU. At 32, she had been an attending physician for 3 years, specializing in critical care medicine. The work was demanding and emotionally exhausting, but Sarah had never wanted to do anything else. She stopped at the nurse's station to review charts when the charge nurse, Patricia, approached with a concerned expression. "Dr. Mitchell, we have a new admission coming up from the ER. Severe head trauma from a car accident. 28-year-old male, found unconscious at the scene. No identification, no family located yet. He's been stabilized but remains unresponsive." Sarah nodded, already mentally preparing. "Vitals? Stable for now, but he's going to need close monitoring. The neurologist wants hourly assessments." When the patient arrived, Sarah conducted her examination with practiced efficiency. The young man had dark hair, a strong build, and wore an expensive watch, the only personal item that had survived the accident intact. But beyond those surface details, he was a mystery. No wallet, no phone, nothing to indicate who he was or who might be looking for him. "John Doe for now," Patricia noted on the chart. "Police are running fingerprints, checking missing persons reports." Over the following days, Sarah found herself spending extra time with her unidentified patient. Beyond the required medical assessments, she talked to him, something she did with all her comatose patients, believing that human connection mattered even when patients could not respond. "Good morning, John," she would say during morning rounds. "It's Tuesday. The weather is terrible, rain all week. You are not missing much." She would explain his treatment plan, describe what was happening in the news, share mundane details about her day. Her colleagues teased her gently about her dedication to the mystery patient, but Sarah could not shake the feeling that he was alone in a way that went beyond his current unconscious state. Someone should be here, she thought. Someone should be talking to him, holding his hand, reminding him that he mattered. 2 weeks after his admission, a well-dressed woman in her 60s arrived at the ICU, escorted by hospital security. She identified herself as Margaret Thornton and claimed the patient was her son, Alexander Thornton. "We have been searching for him for 2 weeks, Margaret said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "He left after an argument with his father and disappeared. We had no idea he had been in an accident until the police finally connected the fingerprints." Sarah provided a detailed medical update, explaining Alexander's condition, treatment, and prognosis. Margaret listened carefully, asking intelligent questions that suggested genuine concern rather than performative worry. "May I see him?" Margaret asked. Sarah led her to Alexander's room. Margaret stood at the bedside for a long moment, her composure finally cracking. "I told him we could work it out, that the argument did not matter. He would not listen. He just left. And now," she broke off, unable to continue. "He is stable," Sarah said gently. "The swelling in his brain is decreasing. There are positive signs. We have every reason to hope he will wake up." "Will he be the same?" Margaret asked quietly. "When he wakes up, will he remember who he is?" "I cannot make promises. Brain injuries are unpredictable, but we are doing everything we can." Over the following weeks, Margaret became a regular presence in the ICU. She sat with Alexander for hours, talking to him about family, childhood memories, apologies for the argument that had sent him fleeing. He was the CEO of Thornton Industries, a manufacturing company his grandfather had founded. He was brilliant, driven, and had been locked in a bitter dispute with his father over the company's direction. He cared more about doing the right thing than protecting profit margins, Margaret said. His father called him naive. Alexander said his father had lost his moral compass. They both said things they regretted, and then Alexander stormed out. "That was the last time I saw him conscious." Sarah saw Margaret's pain and guilt, and she made a decision. "Mrs. Thornton, I believe patients in comas can hear us. The research is mixed, but I have seen enough to believe it matters. If you want to tell Alexander you love him, that you support his vision for the company, that the argument does not matter, tell him. He might hear you." Margaret took Sarah's advice, and 3 days later, Alexander opened his eyes. His recovery was gradual, first regaining consciousness, then speech, then slowly rebuilding strength and cognitive function. Alexander was funny, self-deprecating about his condition, and remarkably kind to the nursing staff. He remembered nothing about the accident or the weeks in the coma, but he was grateful to be alive. "Dr. Mitchell," he said one afternoon during her rounds, about 2 weeks after waking up, "my mother told me you spent extra time with me when I was unconscious, that you talked to me even though I could not respond. Thank you for that. It is what I do for all my patients," Sarah said, trying to maintain professional boundaries even as she felt warmth at his acknowledgement. "I know, but it still mattered, especially since I had no one else here for the first 2 weeks. Alexander looked at her seriously. "You made sure I was not alone. That is not in your job description, but you did it anyway. That says something about who you are." Sarah felt her professional detachment slipping. "I'm glad you are recovering, Mr. Thornton. You are making excellent progress, Alexander. Please, and can I ask you something?" "Of course. Would you have dinner with me after I am discharged and fully recovered?" Not as doctor and patient, but as two people who met under unusual circumstances. Sarah hesitated. The ethical boundaries were clear. She could not date a current patient. "Ask me again when you are discharged," Sarah said carefully, "when you are no longer my patient, and when you are fully capable of making decisions without any medical influence. If you still want to have dinner, then I will say yes." 6 weeks later, Alexander was discharged with the full recovery expected. 2 days after that, he called Sarah. "I'm officially no longer your patient," he said, "and I am making decisions with full cognitive function as confirmed by your neurology colleagues. So I am asking again, will you have dinner with me?" Sarah smiled. "Yes. But I need you to understand something first. I am not interested in Thornton Industries or your wealth. I agreed to dinner because the man I got to know during your recovery, the one who thanked every nurse by name, who joked about his hospital gown, who told his mother he forgave her and wanted to rebuild their relationship, that man is someone I would like to know better. That man is who I really am," Alexander said. "The CEO stuff is just what I do. You saw me at my most vulnerable and still wanted to know more. That means everything." Their first date was at a modest Italian restaurant, not the expensive establishments Alexander typically frequented. They talked for hours about medicine, business ethics, family dynamics, and what they each valued in life. "My father thought I was naive for wanting to convert our company to sustainable practices," Alexander said. "He said I was sacrificing profit for idealism. The accident and recovery gave me time to think about that. He was wrong. I'm not being naive, I'm being responsible. There is a difference." "You sound like me explaining why I chose critical care over plastic surgery," Sarah said. "The pay is less, the hours are brutal, but the work matters more. My parents still do not understand why I did not choose the lucrative specialty." "Because you care about impact over income," Alexander said. "Same reason I want to transform our company. We are more alike than you might think. You saved my life," Alexander told her one evening, 6 months after his discharge. "Not just medically, though you did that too. But you reminded me that being alone does not mean being lonely if someone cares enough to stay. You stayed when you did not have to. You talked to me when I could not respond. You made sure I knew I mattered even when I was just a John Doe with no one looking for him." "Someone was looking for you," Sarah corrected gently. "Your mother never stopped searching. You were not as alone as you thought. But for those first 2 weeks, you were the only one there, and you treated me with the same compassion you would have if I had been surrounded by family. That is who you are, someone who cares about people because they are people, not because of who they are or what they can offer you." 1 year after Alexander woke up from his coma, he proposed not in his hospital room where they met, but at the Italian restaurant where they had their first date. "You cared for me when I was at my most helpless," Alexander said, kneeling with the ring. "You saw me as a person worth talking to even when I could not talk back. You stayed when you could have just done the minimum required. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing you the same compassion you showed me?" Through her tears, Sarah said yes. But only if you promise to always remember that I fell in love with the patient who thanked nurses and made terrible jokes about hospital food. Not the CEO. Not the Thornton heir, just Alexander. That is exactly who I promised to be, Alexander said. At their wedding, Margaret gave a toast that made everyone cry. My son was lost, then injured, then unconscious. I thought I might lose him forever. But Dr. Mitchell did more than save his life medically.